The dust swirled around their feet as they stood at the edge of a vast and unknown land. For 40 long years they had wandered in the wilderness, led by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Now, the wilderness journey was over. Before them lay Canaan, the land promised to their forefathers, a land flowing with milk and honey. But Canaan was not empty. It was inhabited by strong and fierce people, people who would not readily give up their land. The Israelites, though filled with hope, were also afraid. They had heard stories of giants and fortified cities. They were about to face their greatest test yet. Would they be strong enough to possess the land? Would they trust God to fight for them as he had promised? This was the daunting yet exhilarating scenario that faced Joshua and the Israelites after the death of Moses. God had chosen Joshua, a man of courage and faith, to succeed Moses and lead the people into the promised land. The book of Joshua tells the story of their conquest, a story of battles won and lost, of obedience and disobedience, and above all, of God's faithfulness to his promises. It's a story that still resonates today, reminding us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, God is with us, and he gives us the strength to overcome any obstacle. Joshua wasn't a stranger to leadership. He had served as Moses' right-hand man, witnessing firsthand the power and glory of God. He had seen the plagues that devastated Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, and the provision of manna in the wilderness. He had even climbed Mount Sinai with Moses and heard God's voice. These experiences forged in Joshua an unwavering faith and a deep trust in God. When God called him to lead the Israelites, Joshua didn't hesitate. He knew that this was no easy task. He was stepping into the shoes of Moses, a leader revered by the people. He was also leading a nation that was often prone to complaining and disobedience. But Joshua also knew that God was with him. He had received a powerful promise from God: be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. This promise became Joshua's mantra, his source of strength and courage as he faced the challenges ahead. And challenges there would be many. The first major obstacle was the Jordan River. It wasn't just a river, it was a raging torrent overflowing its banks. How could they possibly cross it, especially with women, children, and livestock in tow? But God had a plan. He instructed Joshua to have the priests, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, step into the river. The Ark, a symbol of God's presence, was to go ahead of them. As soon as the priests' feet touched the water's edge, the flow of water upstream stopped. The water piled up in a heap, creating a dry path for the Israelites to cross. Imagine the scene. A nation on the move, walking through the middle of a river, the ground dry beneath their feet. It was a miracle of epic proportions, a visible demonstration of God's power and his faithfulness to his promises. This event instilled in the Israelites a renewed sense of awe and confidence in God. They had witnessed the impossible become possible. Surely, if God could part the Jordan, he could help them conquer Jericho and the rest of the Promised Land. The first city they encountered was Jericho, a heavily fortified city with towering walls. It seemed unconquerable. But God gave Joshua a strange battle plan. For 6 days the Israelite army was to march around the city once, with the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant and blowing trumpets. On the 7th day, they were to march around the city 7 times, and at the sound of the trumpet blast, the people were to shout. It seemed like utter foolishness. What good would marching and shouting do against those massive walls? But the Israelites obeyed. They had learned from their wilderness wanderings the importance of obeying God, even when his instructions didn't make sense. On the 7th day, as they marched around the city for the 7th time and let out a mighty shout, the walls of Jericho came crashing down. The Israelites rushed in and captured the city. It was a stunning victory, a testament to the power of obedience. Section 5. The stumble at Ai Sin's devastating impact. Their victory at Jericho, however, was followed by a crushing defeat at Ai, a seemingly insignificant city. The Israelites, overconfident after their victory at Jericho, had sent a small force to attack Ai, but they were soundly defeated. This unexpected defeat sent shockwaves through the Israelite camp. What had gone wrong? Had God abandoned them? Joshua tore his clothes in despair and sought God's face. God revealed to Joshua that there was sin in the camp. A man named Achan had disobeyed God's command and taken plunder from Jericho. This act of disobedience, though seemingly small, had disastrous consequences for the entire nation. It highlighted a profound truth: sin has a ripple effect. It not only affects the individual but also those around them. Achan's sin had broken their covenant with God, and it cost them the victory at Ai. Section 6. The Gibeonite Deception, Seeking God's Guidance. After dealing with the sin in the camp, the Israelites went on to conquer more territory. Their victories struck fear into the hearts of the Canaanite kings. One group, the Gibeonites, fearing for their lives, decided to trick the Israelites into making a peace treaty with them. They came to Joshua pretending to be travelers from a distant land. The Israelites, without consulting God, made a treaty with them. Later, when the Israelites discovered the deception, they were bound by their oath to protect the Gibeonites. This incident highlighted the importance of seeking God's guidance in all things. The Israelites had acted hastily, relying on their own judgment instead of seeking God's will. Their failure to consult God led them into a situation that brought about complications later on. It served as a reminder that God's wisdom is always available to us, but we must be willing to seek it. Section 7. The sun stands still, a testament to God's power. As the conquest continued, the Israelites faced a formidable alliance of 5 Amorite kings. During the battle, Joshua, seeing that daylight was fading, cried out to God to make the sun stand still. And God answered his prayer. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and did not move for almost a whole day. This miraculous event gave the Israelites the time they needed to completely rout their enemies. This incredible event, recorded in the book of Jashar, is a testament to God's awesome power and his willingness to intervene in human affairs in extraordinary ways. It reminds us that nothing is impossible for God. He is not bound by the laws of nature. He is the author of those laws. He can and does intervene in our lives, sometimes in ways that defy human logic and understanding. Section 8. Dividing the Inheritance, God's Promises Fulfilled. After many years of battles, the conquest of Canaan was finally complete. It was time to divide the land among the 12 tribes of Israel, fulfilling the promise that God had made to their forefathers centuries earlier. Joshua, under God's direction, oversaw the distribution of the land. Each tribe received its inheritance, a place to call their own. This division of the land was more than just a geographical exercise, it was a testament to God's faithfulness. He had kept his promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He had brought their descendants into the land flowing with milk and honey. It was a time of rejoicing and thanksgiving for the Israelites. They had witnessed God's power, his provision, and his unwavering faithfulness. Section 9. Lessons from Joshua, Timeless Truths for Today. The book of Joshua, though written centuries ago, is filled with timeless truths that are still relevant for us today. It reminds us that God keeps his promises, that obedience brings blessing, that sin has consequences, and that God's power is limitless. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: God fights for his people. Just as he fought for the Israelites, he fights for us today. We may not face physical battles like the Israelites did, but we face our own giants: fear, doubt, insecurity, temptation. But the message of Joshua is clear: be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. When we trust in him and obey his commands, we, like Joshua and the Israelites, can be sure of victory in the battles we face.